Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to see everybody here. My name is Caroline Kiston. I'm a pediatrician and a health services researcher at the Hassenfeld Child Health Innovation Institute within the Health Services Policy and Practice department at the Brown University School of Public Health. And I'm so excited to welcome you to this convening today on social media and children's mental health. As I think everyone in this room knows, there are many concerns and unanswered questions about the complex relationship between social media and children's mental health. And it is clear that the problem requires a collaborative approach to find evidence-based solutions that work for children and families. In addition, the landscape of social media is rapidly changing, which presents challenges in understanding experiences and planning interventions and evaluation. Even over the course of just this past year, we have seen an in-depth assessment of the impact of social media on the health and well-being of adolescents and children from the national academies. We've seen two different Surgeon General advisories, one on the effects of social media on youth mental health, and the other on the stress, mental health, and well-being of parents. That includes the impact of parenting in the digital age. We've seen numerous state and local lawsuits filed against social media platforms. We've seen different versions of online safety and privacy bills working their way through Congress. And we've seen a wide range of new policies from schools, cities, and even states around phone bans in schools. Not to mention multiple books, articles, and op-eds that seem like at this point they're coming out almost every day. What still remains, however, is the need to center the voices of youth and families from diverse backgrounds to identify actionable solutions, as well as insight from researchers in the field on how to respond much more quickly than we usually do in the implementation and evaluation world. So today we have the unique opportunity to listen to folks from around the country, both on the stage and in the audience, who have complementary experience and expertise, and to identify opportunities for shared action to improve children's mental health in the digital age. So a few notes: if anyone needs a quiet space over the course of the day, if you head straight back and to your left, near where you might have left your luggage, there are some rooms where you can take a call or do anything else. There are bathrooms out the hall and to the right. And you will not be asked to put your phone in a pouch or in your locker, as many students are asked to do these days. But I do want to let you know that we have youth here who are watching. And there is no one more attuned to the difference between what we say and what we do. So if you need to pull out your phone, please proceed accordingly. So with that, it is my great honor to call up to the stage Dr. Ashish Jha, who is the Dean of the Brown University School of Public Health. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. As Caroline said, my name is Ashish Jha. I'm a professor of health services policy and practice, and I'm currently the dean of the School of Public Health. I want to spend a couple of minutes just making a few remarks before we get to the substance of the day. First of all, it is great to do this event in Washington. Yesterday, we had the advisory council for the Hassenfeld Institute here in Washington. And it's a symbol of the growing presence of Brown University in Washington. The School of Public Health opened up its office here a year ago. We've had a whole series of events, from the work happening at the Pandemic Center to our Health Policy Center. And the reason is really quite straightforward, which is if we are a school and a university focused on impact, which we are, and if we want to move beyond just writing great papers and training students and getting grants and doing all of the important academic work, then we have to be in the places where decisions are made. And Washington is one of those places. Washington sometimes thinks it's the only place. Turns out it's not the only place, but it is certainly one of those places. And so it is extraordinarily important for us as a school and as a university to have a deep presence here. And it is also really important that we're holding this event here. So I'm very excited about that. I want to share a story. So some of you know I took a leave from Brown a couple of years ago to come to Washington, spent about a year and a half here in Washington at the White House. And as I was leaving, one of the sort of privileges you get when you're a senior staffer to the president is you get to bring your family in and meet with the president. And so my wife, my kids, my parents, we all got to go to the Oval Office and spend about half an hour with the president and chat. It was an extraordinary moment. And as he was talking to all of us, and he asked me, he said, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "I heard you're going back to Brown." I said, "I am." And he said, "What are you going to work on?" And I said, "There are a lot of public health issues that require attention." And I said, climate change and the health effects it is having, the opioid crisis. I was going to list several others, and he interrupted me, and he said, "Well, there's one that keeps me awake at night." And I said, "That's not great for the President of the United States to be kept awake at night by a public health issue." So I said, "Sir, what is that?" And he said, "What is happening with mental health for our youth?" And then he said, "Our Surgeon General tells me that social media is playing a very important role here. It worries me when I think about my grandchildren, when I think about the future generation of Americans." And I thought, if this is the thing that the President of the United States is highlighting, this is indeed an extraordinarily important issue. And that gets me to today's event and how it has come to be. This is really an extraordinary day. If you look at the agenda, who is here, we have great policymakers. We have youth who are going to keep it real and remind us of the reality on the ground. This event has been a long time coming in terms of planning, but is really the beginning of a journey of the work that needs to happen, that is going to happen under Hassenfeld and the Hassenfeld Institute. And I will say that if you look at who's here, if you look at the experts, if you look at the document that's being distributed, where we have a release with the Parents Union, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Hassenfeld Institute. This is really the Hassenfeld Child Health Institute at Brown, functioning and having impact at an extraordinarily high level. And that, in my mind, is really driven by one person, and that's Mike Silverstein. Mike became the director of the Hassenfeld Institute 3 years ago. Might feel like a lifetime, might feel like yesterday. But what Mike has done is really brought in some of the leading experts, thinkers, but people who are also deeply practical to tackle the big issues that are affecting children's health. And obviously this is one of them. So I am very grateful for Mike's leadership. And I'm very grateful for Alan Hassenfeld's leadership and the whole Hassenfeld family. Ellie's not here, but Susie is, and Alan is. And I'm going to introduce Alan next. Alan really needs no introduction. He is a man with his finger on the pulse, not just in Rhode Island, but around the country, and an extraordinary leader. So, Alan, thank you for your leadership.
I'm not as serious as everyone here, so once in a while I might put in a little bit of humor. But first, let me thank my Brown family to allow us to be a part of Brown University. Let me thank my Rhode Island family. We're a small state, but we can model everything. I need to thank my sister Ellie, my niece Susie, and my wife Viv. Since Potato Head, that wonderful toy, is paying for part of this, Potato Head wanted me to just inform all of you there are only 42 more shopping days until Christmas. The Chinese word for crisis is weiji. These two characters mean danger and opportunity. Ancient Chinese philosophy believes that opportunities do come out of crises. This is a time of opportunity to work together, not in silos, as sometimes academia can do. I could not be more excited to embark on this journey with all of you, as for once, we really do have a bipartisan issue. Let us follow the lead of Australia and Norway on the effects of social media in our most important asset, our future, our teenagers. Crisis does give you the opportunity to act decisive, to act bold, and to act differently. We will only succeed united with egos left at the door. Thank you. And let me have one of my mentors, Mike. Mike, to you.
Thanks, Alan. I'm going to be super brief. My name is Mike Silverstein. I'm the director of the Hassenfeld Child Health Institute. And I just want to offer a few thank yous. I think when you come to an event like this, the goal of the people who planned it is to have no one see all the planning on the other side. But the planning on the other side was extraordinary. The logistics, Patrick and Megan McGrath, Maggie, but the program that Caroline and Elizabeth, Claire, Jenny, and others put together today is extraordinarily thoughtful. There are lots of meetings about social media and youth mental health. Many of those meetings are sort of public lamentations of the problem. We're not going to do that. We're going to search for solutions. And that may seem like a little detail, but it really is everything. So to Caroline and Elizabeth, thank you. To the Hassenfeld family for having the vision and for pushing us in this direction. Susie, Alan, Ellie, who's not here today. To Ashish and Chris, leading Brown in such an amazing direction. I couldn't be more thankful. And a special thank you to Young Voices. You guys and I arrived at the hotel at the same time yesterday. I was grumpy because of a bad flight. And I saw you guys, and I'm like, this is going to be a great couple of days. So thank you in advance for all your work coming into this event. So Caroline, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, it is my great pleasure to invite Dr. Jenny Radesky up to the stage. Jenny is a longtime colleague of mine and somebody who is a real thought leader in this area. She is co-medical director, along with Megan Moreno, who's also here, of the American Academy of Pediatrics Center of Excellence on Social Media and Youth Mental Health, and one of the true experts. And as both a researcher and a parent, I am thrilled that she is one of the voices that is leading this work. So please welcome Dr. Radesky.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you. First, I just wanted to say how honored I am to be in this room with a community of people who care so much about kids and really care about communities being part of the solutions rather than top-down academics kind of dictating what families should do. So I really, really appreciate Alan's support and Susie and Ellie, who's not here, in supporting this work and everyone coming together and sharing ideas. I also, why I'm here because I was Mike Silverstein's research mentee at Boston Medical Center about 10 years ago. At Boston Medical Center, it was kind of baked into the way we practiced medicine and pediatrics that we thought about the context and the policies and how to set families up for success, not expect them all to just compete for scarce resources. So it was really a pleasure when Caroline and Mike reached out to me about 18 months ago saying, we really want to focus on this topic. How do we do it right? This is such a polarized topic. If you read headlines about it, you might be really scared or you might think, oh, it's no big deal, it's just a moral panic. So and that's part of our dysfunctional information ecosystem right now that's partly driven by social media. So what I really wanted to do was work with folks who I trust at the Hassenfeld Child Innovation Institute because they respect the community perspective on solving a problem. They don't have the hubris to kind of come in and say, here are the 4 things you have to do to make everything better. So I really have appreciated the way they want to follow the evidence but not contribute to the noise and the guilt that families are feeling. That's what we've been working on at the Center of Excellence on Social Media and Youth Mental Health. If you don't know about our center, we are funded by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. We are in year 3, the beginning of year 3 of a 5-year grant from SAMHSA. So it's been this amazing opportunity. A lot of our team is here, and they're manning a booth outside with some of our resources, where we've taken this intentional voice towards this topic of being trauma-informed and community-focused so that we can help meet families where they are and help them through this problem, not kind of contributing to any shame or blame. So this is partly because it doesn't reflect the nuance of the science, and it's also because it's not what teens tell us is their lived experience around this. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about guilt, and that's because every time I talk to families about this, you could be academics, you could be families I see in clinic. I'm a developmental behavioral pediatrician at University of Michigan. You could be a journalist. I've talked to hundreds of journalists who just say to me, oh, this topic makes me feel so guilty. I'm so bad at this. I just want to say as an aside, Jess Gross was not one of those journalists who made that statement to me, because she gets the systems level structures that are affecting why this feels hard for families. So we realized this like overwhelming feeling of guilt taking up so much space is actually getting in the way of making some pragmatic changes and making progress. It's paralyzing people. I know this in clinic when families come in upset that their child was expelled from preschool, they're biting other kids, they're yelling back at them when they want to take their tablet. Parents internalize this as like, I am terrible at this. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But so much of parenting in America is actually dictated by much larger structures and opportunities than, and we really tend to, because of our larger cultural narrative of individualism, take it on ourselves. So I want to take a little bit of a public health lens to talk about why I think some of that guilt exists. I love Tom Friedman's health impact pyramid. I don't know if you've seen it before, but it is at the top. You make the least population impact with the most individual effort needed if you're just doing counseling and education. So if you're a clinician or a community health worker sitting in front of a parent saying, and of course we do this, let me help you figure out the settings on your kid's phone. Let me counsel you on how to get a good sleep routine. But if you actually want to make the largest population impact, you go to the bottom, the second tier to the bottom of the health impact pyramid, and that's changing the context or the ecosystem to make the default decisions healthy. So you can imagine in a food ecosystem, this would mean that the fruits and vegetables are some of the most affordable. If this is a chemical ecosystem, we're removing lead from gasoline, so it is not lowering kids' IQ scores. But when it comes to a digital ecosystem, there has not been that systematic way of changing design so that it's child-centered. We've really been reacting to problems once they arise, and then trying to debug or make little changes or add little user settings or family centers. And it's not that these aren't worthwhile, it's just they're not changing the underlying structures of the business models or some of the marketing incentives that underlie why social media is designed the way it is. If we wanted to design media that really made it easy to parent around, you would have things that say like, all right, hey kids, how much time do you want to spend? Let's set that, let's make a plan, and I'm gonna help you disengage and go do other things when you want to. Those designs exist, they exist in university labs, they just haven't been rolled out to big companies because kids make companies billions of dollars in advertising revenue. If you wanted a system that helped you as a parent get more sleep, it wouldn't have endless scroll and personalized feeds that know exactly what you might want to click on when you're bored. So I think when I've talked to designers in the tech industry who really care about good design, I'm like, well, this is a terribly designed system if you want families and parents not to be arguing all the time. I mean, some of my research has looked at the App Store. It's so easy to download whatever you want, pretend you're 13 or 18, and get into apps that connect you with strangers. It's once you do play apps, even if they're age appropriate, they have all these designs that make you want to come back every day, play longer, There are characters pressuring you to make purchases. I was talking to folks at dinner about this last night, and they were like, what? Yes, there are characters telling you, come back, you need to save us, you need to buy this locked item. We have notifications for kids throughout the school day. We have competition for attention on the algorithmic feeds that kids are trying to decide what to watch next. And I think we also have a marketing ecosystem where if you have a big enough budget and small enough morals, you can target any psychological weakness or fear because guess what? Short-form video is really good at reading what our your brain's shortcuts are, so it kind of knows what we react to. So this largely reduces user autonomy to kind of use media the way we want to, disengage when we want to. And we heard this in our work, even though we didn't ask about design, in our work with Parent Voice, which is through the National Parents Union. In that report that you'll find copies of outside, we worked with them about what are the struggles, how do you know when tech is a problem, how do you know when your kid's relationship with tech is healthy. And a lot of parents mentioned design features. They mentioned things like algorithms that introduce the content I didn't necessarily want my kid to see, but there it is, and now I have to parent around that. They talked about age assurance, but they didn't use that term. They said tech doesn't know who's a kid. And in my community, I know who's a kid. I know how to treat a 10-year-old like a 10-year-old, but the tech system is agnostic to who my kid is, and therefore they're introducing less things that I really didn't want them to see. And they talked about the fact that kids have a hard time detaching from technology. So I really appreciated both the community input through Parent Voice on what the problem looks like to them, because that's going to inform our solutions. Some of those solutions might be building out our community spaces where we have places to connect with each other. As I was at NIMH yesterday with Dr. Moreno, my co-medical director, and we talked about the fact that sometimes when we run parent or child focus groups like this, and we ask them about what is the intervention, they're like, this was the intervention. I got to talk about this. I felt so guilty about this. I thought this was all my fault, but everyone else is dealing with the same thing. So maybe part of the solution might be incorporating some collective idea sharing or support through our community structures. We also invited Jen Hefferon from the California Partners Project because I've been really inspired by some of their work to think about what are the third spaces that kids need too that help them in their communities engage, find meaning and purpose, and then take up that space that they would otherwise be on technology. So excited to hear more about some of these community-based solutions. So the last thing I'm going to say before I introduce Jess Gross, our keynote speaker, is the feeling of guilt also really isolates us and can make it feel like this is such an individual problem we need to deal with alone. And so at the Center of Excellence, we really have been focusing on inherently relational solutions and intergenerational solutions. So I'd love to think more today about how being understood actually is very healing for families when they're feeling a lot of shame. And that's why in our resources that we create through the Center of Excellence, so these include our website, aap.org/social media, it's all on the reports. We have a question and answer portal, so anyone can ask a question, and we try to write back with an evidence review, but also with that voice that is like, we get you, here are some practical solutions, not the, oh my gosh, this is all on fire. We're doing echo trainings, webinars, we do lots of talks, and lots of listening. And so it's been really nice to make sure we are centering the youth experience. We are focusing on individual differences, because not every kid has the same reaction to social media. We're focusing on a developmental lens so that we can start earlier in helping kids have healthier relationships with YouTube or other social media-like technologies before they get that first phone or their first social media account. We're thinking a lot about context, like parents' own technology use and how that signals unavailability to kids who want to talk, finally want to talk. And then we're thinking about the ecosystem. We're trying to help point out to parents what's not working, how the designs sometimes are acting against their best efforts of trying to have balance in their families. Okay, so with this mindset about kind of collective work and the importance of systems in shaping how parenting happens in America, that is why we thought of Jess Gross as our keynote speaker today. As I said, when I have talked with journalists who think about parenting, think about technology, a lot of them default to that individual responsibility lens. It's been so satisfying to talk. Now, first of all, before I even got to talk to her during an interview about technology, I was following her during the pandemic, because as a working mom at home with neurodiverse kids, I was a wreck, like a lot of you, and we all suddenly had all of these structures shift around us. And I found her headlines like, "Why Your Brain Feels Broken," to be just so affirming. And I was like, yes, you see me, okay? She was really advocating the pandemic as a mental health crisis for parents. Another one of my favorite headlines was, "The weird apps lurking on your child's tablet." And this was about the apps that are really on the App Store that help your child learn how to do a C-section or plastic surgery. No joke, I know. So she really brilliantly sees the structures around US families that shape our opportunities and our abilities to parent the way we want to and raise our kids the way we want to. Her book is called Screaming on the Inside: The Unsustainability of American Motherhood. I had it on the beach this summer. Multiple women came up and were like, yes. Yeah, thank you. She's a Brown alum. She wrote for the Indy as an undergrad, and she has 2 other books other than Screaming on the Inside. And right now she is an opinion writer at the New York Times, focusing on religion, education, culture, family, all these larger concepts that really are really important, especially right now. So please welcome Jess Gross, and thank you for making the trip today.
Thank you so much to Jenny, and thank you so much for having me. This is an issue that is dear to my heart, and I will tell you, my 7th grader helped me make this PowerPoint, so if it looks bad, we can blame her. And I first realized that social media is evolving faster than parents can keep up with when my now 7th grader was in preschool. So she loved Peppa Pig, as many kids 10 years ago did. She particularly loved the song about an airplane, and it goes, "Flying high in the sky." She wanted to hear the song over and over again. So I go to YouTube, and I click on what looks to be this song. We had, at this point, parental controls on everything. We were following all the screen time rules. We thought we were doing everything right. I click on this link that I think is just a clip from Peppa Pig. It starts normally. It's the song we want. Quickly, Peppa Pig flies into the Twin Towers. So that was when I first thought, there is no way, as an individual parent, even who thinks they're aware, who thinks they're doing everything right, who covers this journalistically, that I can do this all myself. So now she is almost 12. Her sister is 8. It's 2024, and social media is evolving faster and faster and faster. And it's faster than any individual parent can reasonably be expected to pay attention to. So it feels like every week, there is a new headline. Whether it is deep fake AI porn made by middle school boys or Roblox child predator problem. These are 3 headlines from this year. It is not funny anymore. I could laugh at this ridiculous YouTube video that I clicked away from immediately and did not disturb my 3-year-old. This is not funny. So it's not for lack of effort that I'm not paying attention to what my children see and do. My 7th grader still does not have a smartphone, much to her own chagrin. She does not have social media. I've instilled the fear of God in them, that anything they ever put on the internet can be permanent. And it's everywhere. So I had another, what I call Peppa Pig moment earlier this year. It was when a colleague of mine who lives in Texas asked me how much time my kids were spending on school-issued devices during the school day. And I realized I had no idea because I had never asked. When the pandemic started in 2020, my kids were 3 and 7. And I learned pretty quickly that my husband and I were very bad at teaching second grade. And when the public schools opened back up in New York City, I wanted to kiss the front steps. I was like, thank God, real teachers, classmates, everything. My kids seemed to be learning normally, so I didn't really pay attention to how much screen time was happening in schools from school-issued one-to-one devices. The United States is a huge country, and our education systems are controlled locally. So we can't really know classroom to classroom how much our kids are on school-issued laptops or devices. But the data that we do have suggests that these devices are ubiquitous. So again, this is a place outside our homes that our kids spend 8 hours every day that we do not have direct control over how much screen time they may or may not be having. Man, this is so sensitive. Okay, so the data we do have suggests that the devices are ubiquitous and they are being used for much of the school day. It's been ramping up since before the pandemic, but it really went off the rails when kids came back after 2020. So here's one example. According to the most recent data from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is sort of the gold standard on educational data, only 8% of 8th grade math teachers say they never or hardly ever use a computer or digital device to teach math. So 81% of 8th grade math teachers say they use digital devices to teach math more than half the time, and 44% say they use digital devices all or most of the time. So even if you're a mean mom like me, and your middle schooler doesn't have a smartphone, and you limit device use at home, chances are they could be on social media throughout their school day. Schools can block sites. Teachers have described the situation to me as whack-a-mole. Every day, the technology administrators of local districts and private school, they're saying, what is the new thing today that we're going to have to block? Kids devise workarounds. Kids are smart. They know. They figure it out, which honestly, I'm a little impressed by. A mom in California that I talked to for a piece described a student in her district watching A Clockwork Orange on YouTube during English class instead of doing his work. So if you don't know that movie, that is not something that should be watched during an 8th grade classroom. So even if your kid is doing what they are supposed to be doing on their devices, there's growing evidence that even being next to another student who is on social media is distracting. So we have almost no proof that the kids being on the devices as much as they are throughout the school day, if that device use is not intentional, actually helps their learning. That's the thing that always gets me, that the tech companies never had to prove that it improved anything. And now the onus feels like it is on parents and schools to prove that it is harmful. So what our kids have lost. I've just described some extreme situations. The AI stuff in particular honestly keeps me up at night. But I don't hate social media. I am a garbage monster. I spend so much time on TikTok, it's embarrassing. I owe my career to the internet. I graduated from Brown in 2004, and my first job was as it was called back then a new media assistant. So I've only worked on the internet. And I know that just banning everything isn't gonna work. I've read every study, I think, that exists on the effects of social media on our kids, and I know that there is a ton of disagreement on how much and in what ways it has affected our children's mental health, and whether it is a major driver of the increases we see in depression and anxiety among kids. Science is messy, and it takes a long time. It's difficult to disaggregate behaviors on social media. Is viewing the feed more damaging than messaging through the app? Is posting your own content good or bad? Does it depend on the kind of content? Do images or video affect children differently than text does? There's so many open questions, and I feel like getting granular on answering those questions is incredibly important. Social media is also new, and it is ever evolving. And I know that despite its drawbacks, it has benefits too. I've spent a lot of quality time bonding with my 8-year-old over cat videos, and my older daughter would truly be a social pariah if she did not know what Riz meant. That said, kids have lost a lot since social media came on the scene. So I wanted to isolate 3 things that I think the science is pretty strong on, and that I think, when I think about what kids have lost, this is what upsets me the most. Okay, reading for fun. They are no longer reading for pleasure. In 2012, when kids were just starting to get smartphones, 27% of students read for pleasure almost every day, and by 2023, only 14% did. So you can see this cute little chart. Time with friends, which honestly, if you're not a dork like me, maybe you don't care about that kids are not reading for fun anymore, but you should care about the fact that kids are not hanging out with their friends. When I graduated from high school in the year 2000, seniors were spending between 2.5 and 3 hours a week with their friends. By 2023, high school seniors only spent about 90 minutes a week with their friends. And that is such an important part of becoming independent and finding your way in the world, is spending time away from your parents, away even from organized activities. So this last one is, I think, what is the most important in terms of kids' mental health. They're losing sleep. So according to the CDC, the percentage of high school students who do not get enough sleep increased from 2009 to 2021. Nearly 80% of high schoolers are not getting sufficient sleep. Many studies have found a negative association between social media, smartphone use before bedtime, and the quality and duration of sleep. And I should listen to that as well, but I'm a grown-up, I don't have to. I personally worry about my kids' data being mined by tech companies before they can meaningfully consent to that. A Common Sense Media report on the state of kids' privacy in 2021 found that nearly 3/4 of the products they surveyed did not meet their minimum privacy recommendation threshold. Then there are these intangibles, and again, this also keeps me up at night. These are not measurable by surveys. I worry about what happens to their brains when much of the creative work they see is chosen for them by an algorithm. I worry about the loss of serendipity, of discovery, and of free thought. When I get really tinfoil hatty, I worry we're preparing our children for a totalitarian surveillance state by making them think it is normal to have their movements and digital lives tracked by their parents and by tech companies. Okay. So I know I've just spent several minutes outlining all the problems and maybe scaring some of you with problems you didn't even think about before. And there's quite a few, but when I take off the tinfoil hat, I can tell you that there are solutions. Some of them are already in our hands. Some of them require new laws. But I think that we're in a moment where we are realizing that there does need to be some greater regulation of tech, that it's not all on parents to manage the unmanageable. And exactly as other people have already said, I do think that the solutions are bipartisan. This is an issue that I have talked to parents of all different backgrounds, and they all have similar concerns. So, solutions for schools. When I was doing a series on tech in schools, I spoke to Alex Molnar, who co-founded the National Education Policy Center. Something he said has stuck with me for many months. He said, the tech industry's ethos is, if it's doable, it's necessary. But for educators, that has to be an actual question. Is this necessary? And even after you cleared the bar of necessary, he said educators should be asking, is doing it this way good, or could we do it another way that would be better? Better in the ethical sense and better in the pedagogical sense. I think for too long, the default has been to trust that any tech innovation was good. We didn't want kids to be left behind, and access to technological education can absolutely be an equity issue. So I'm not suggesting that this is easy. But when we had the fire drill of remote schooling in 2020, we became screen first for so many activities that were perhaps better done without tech. More and more teachers in districts are realizing that they need to reassess the way they approach device use. And because there are so many different types of schools and learners, it's impossible for me to give a one-size-fits-all solution for managing tech use in the classroom. But I do think the first step is being intentional about every time a student takes out the device. It's asking, is it necessary and is it good? So I think the tools that we have can work better. Districts have settings at their disposal that they might not even know about. An example here is online grading apps. If you're unfamiliar, most middle and high schools have programs where students and parents alike can check their grades. This causes anxiety for overcheckers who are looking at their GPAs several times a day and fretting over every minor fluctuation. So this is both students and parents who do this. Schools could cut down on this behavior by setting their apps to only release grades once a week, for example. If teachers could enter grades whenever they're ready, but parents and students would only be rewarded with that pellet of information once a week or once every 2 weeks, it would really cut down on this behavior because they wouldn't be rewarded with new information every time they're refreshing the app. Get the smartphones out of school. I am certainly not the first to suggest this, but I think there are reasons to get phones out of the classroom that go beyond social media. And it's not just that smartphones make it so children have trouble paying attention in class or even being near other children looking at social media, it's distracting. It's that phones make it easier for bullying to go viral. I cannot tell you how many teachers have told me about incidents at their schools where children took videos or photos without consent and then used them to bully other students while still in the building. If you are a child who is bullied, the feeling that you cannot get away from those behaviors no matter where you go is just so hard to move on from. You can see this chart from the Kaiser Family Foundation, which suggests that 9 in 10 public schools report cyberbullying. So another chart from Kaiser Family Foundation shows that states are finally taking the harm of smartphones seriously, and legislation has been enacted to restrict or ban their use in public schools in 8 states, with 19 more having either introduced legislation or launched pilot programs. So, from the government, continue to enforce existing laws. We do have laws on the books that are meant to protect children. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, which is meant to prevent tech companies from illegally collecting data on children under 13, can help hold tech companies accountable. So we can see here, it's happening. These are not necessarily front page news, and these, the tech companies obviously are so well remunerated that this doesn't necessarily cause major damage to them, but it's something. I think the legislative system also needs to keep up with the pace of change. I know I said that AI deepfakes are something that keeps me up at night, but I am heartened to see that legislators in red and blue states alike are trying to fix this problem. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, lawmakers in at least 17 states enacted laws that specifically refer to online impersonation done with intent to intimidate, bully, threaten, or harass a person through social media sites, email, or other electronic or online communications. Some of these laws in South Dakota, Illinois, and Iowa specifically target the creation of deepfakes of minors. At least 40 states have legislation on deepfakes pending in the 2024 legislative session. So I think we're finally realizing this is not a problem that any individual can handle themselves, especially not parents who have so much else on their plates. So, it would be very easy to fall down a rabbit hole and worry about the future for our kids when it comes to our connected world. As someone who has spent way too much time lingering in the dark corners of the internet as a reporter, there are some days when I want to send my girls to a convent where they only read Ovid and Homer for the rest of their youth. But we have to prepare our kids for the world that exists, and not the world that we wish existed. And that involves familiarizing ourselves with the tools we have, teaching them media literacy at home and in school, which I think is huge, and making sure we're holding our lawmakers accountable for keeping us all safe. I don't think it's helpful to seal our kids off from progress. My daughter, as I said, helped me make this, and it's because she taught herself Google Slides during remote school when she was in 2nd and 3rd grade. I thought that was amazing. I don't think that we live in a world where it makes sense to cut our children off from the exploration and play and learning that also can take place online. They need that time for play and experimentation, just with adequate supervision and guardrails that are not just put in place in our homes, because we cannot be standing behind them every second that they are on a device. It is not possible, especially if you have multiple children. And as they're getting older, they're spending time at friends' houses. I don't want to think about what is going on at the friends' houses. I'm not there at the sleepover, nor should I be. But I do believe we have the solutions to make the online landscape a little better for our children. And nothing will be a panacea, because what happens online is a reflection of what's happening in real life. But we shouldn't be putting it all on individual parents to manage it. I can't keep up with every new development, and neither can any normal parent. So, questions? I'm opening it to the field. Anyone? It can be about reporting. It can be about what I do in my own house. It can be about tinfoil hat stuff.
I can speak loudly too.
Yes.
First question is, how do you, when all of you are thinking about this issue and when you're reporting and researching, how do you think about the line between what you consider to be social media and just technology in general for these kids? Because I just, and I'm sure you found this too, in talking to schools, and I have school-age children too.
Yeah.
One of the feedback that I always get is, well, that's just a social media issue. It's not an issue of the phone and of technology. And if we don't let the kids have this technology in school, out of school all the time, then we're going to be keeping them behind.
Right. So to me, basically everything can be social media at this point. I think Roblox is a great example. Most people don't think about that as a social media platform, but you can chat on it. Makes it social media. I think defining it as broadly as possible so that we can, again, figure out what are the behaviors within this incredibly enormous ecosystem that are damaging, rather than just say all social media is bad and all social media shouldn't be here. At the same time, I think for schools, there just has been a total lack of intentionality as to why they need the technology in specific moments and for what. So, there's so many situations in which the laptop is just out or the iPad is just out. And there have been decisions made on the larger level to do things like make the entire curriculum digital. And it doesn't, sometimes they say it's a financial decision, but guess what? Fixing the Chromebooks every time an 8th grader breaks one is very expensive, and it is probably a wash in terms of having actual physical textbooks. So I think defining social media in X, Y, and Z ways is basically unhelpful. Almost everything has a social aspect to it now because there's chat functionality or there's connective functionality. So again, I don't find that a particularly useful question. I think for schools, the question is always, is it necessary? Is it good? If they can't answer that, you can push back, and you should. And I'm not going to get the name right, but I can pass it along later. If you would like to organize and ask the hard questions of your schools, there are organizations that have toolkits that can help you have a list of questions to say, hey, why are you doing X, Y, and Z this way? Can I have an explanation? Is there another way to do it? And again, schools are a big, complicated beast. There are state laws, there are local laws. The United States is a particularly difficult place to talk about schools because it's like, I don't have the 100,000 different rules that govern each different, district. But, I think that's where parents who have the time and energy to advocate, that's where they come in. And students as well. I mean, so many students, I think, want to have. I've heard them say in classes where they have ramped down the tech use that they feel relieved because they're outside the classroom. It's just phones 24/7. So to have a place that is more contemplative, that is more quiet, is actually nice for them. I think we're always also framing it in a negative way, where it's like we're taking something away from them that they desperately want. And it's like, well, maybe some of them are happy to have a break from it. So I think, again, I don't think whether or not something is social media is necessarily the pivotal question to ask.
Thank you. This is great. Really good to hear from you. The graph that you showed that scared me the most personally was the one that showed the decline in time that students spend hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
And which is really a after school, evening, weekend thing. What I see, and I'm the president of Brown, so it's great to see such a wonderful alum give a talk. But what I see is that there's sort of this lack of social resilience that's creeping in, and we're actually, we have classes to teach students how to talk to each other. We didn't used to have to do that. And how to disagree, how to be respectful, I wonder how much of that is linked to this. The hangout time, but also the polarization of viewpoints and ideas that students see on social media. And then you can see it carrying through into adulthood.
Yes, absolutely. So. I do think that is all connected. I also think part of the issue is not just the free time is spent online. I think parents have gotten too involved in our children's time in general. So, sports is a great example. You used to be able to, and I've written about this as well, you used to be able to do sports on a rec level. It used to not have to be the most important thing. You didn't have to spend 15 hours a week doing it. But increasingly, with pay-to-play sports and travel leagues and all of this, if you are going to play sports, it then becomes this expensive, incredibly time-consuming, life-sucking activity. And the vacuum that is left by kids who would like to do this activity, which is physically good for them, team bonding, exercising, has now become this thing that is just another way to have this elite group of people, and it leaves a lot of kids behind, and it leaves a lot of kids not able to have a lower key, less parentified version of socialization. So I think you see that in all of the kids' activities, and third spaces have been mentioned, but I think part of the reason that kids are left with so little to do is because all of their activities have become so competitive and about actually, having something to apply to college for. It's just not for fun and connection and socialization anymore. So I think there are a lot of dynamics happening that don't allow kids the freedom to hang. And, I was saying this to some people before, part of the reason we stayed living in New York City, and that I'm very glad we stayed living in New York City, is because of the amount of independence it allows my 7th grader to have. She is walking a half an hour to school by herself with her friends. She bops around the neighborhood. I do not track her. I think I am the only parent who does not track her child in my child's middle school. She has an Apple Watch. She doesn't have a phone. I want her to feel that independence, and I think that is something parents can help with. Part of the reason kids are not hanging out is because their parents don't give them the independence to say, I trust you. You're going to tell me where you are, and I'm going to trust that you're where you said you were going to be. And I think sometimes kids might say, it's not even worth it. My parents don't trust me. They're going to be breathing down my neck. I think part of allowing kids to be kids means allowing them that independence to work things out amongst themselves in middle and high school. And I don't know how we make that cultural shift, because again, every time I talk to parents about this, I am one of the few who doesn't track her kids. And this is I know that it seems like a very specific thing to get hung up on, but I really think it is setting a really bad precedent for society to have a generation of children who think that it is appropriate for authority figures to know where they are every second of the day. And I think it leads to this feeling that they can't make mistakes because they're always being watched. And again, that's sort of getting far afield from your original question, but to me it's all part of the same environment, and it's the same thing that kind of almost leads to this sort of inability to talk to each other, polarization, because they're afraid to make mistakes. Does that make sense? Okay.
It should be coming on. Yes. Hi, I'm Phyllis Dennery. I'm the chair of pediatrics at Brown, and I really enjoyed your presentation. The one thing in terms of talking about social media as a big one thing, but really, I think there needs to be an opportunity to teach people something about being more discriminating. Just like we learn in science, you can't trust everything you read.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's become this thing where it's whatever is there. And I think that's influenced a lot of things in our culture. So how are there steps, are there people looking at ways to help people be more scientific about what they see on the internet? Because that's part of the problem. We just believe everything we see there.
Yeah, schools need to be teaching media literacy. And actually think that needs to start in elementary school before kids are necessarily encountering the internet without any parental guidance. They need to understand what a good source is. My kids' school has been great with that. They start that education in, I want to say, 2nd or 3rd grade. They obviously in an age-appropriate, cognitively appropriate way, but I think parents and schools need to start talking to kids as young as possible about the limitations of what they're seeing on the internet, what is a good source, what is a trustworthy source. Am I confident that that's going to reach everybody? No. But that's a start. I think I think it is related, honestly, to the drop-off in reading and the ability to read longer passages, because the sort of critical thinking and the ability to sit with nuance when you're not reading longer passages is harder. When you're getting all of your information through short-form video or through very brief text, I think it can lead to sort of more black and white thinking or credulity of things that don't make any sense. So again, the education has to be both at home and school. Because our education, again, is so localized, it's going to be an uphill battle.
As a parent myself, I have a 9-year-old 4th grader. And so the question that I have in terms of like social media technology and tool is in connection to like media literacy of like, how do we teach this as a tool, capacity limitations, when you can, when you shouldn't, whatsoever. But then I guess the underlying thing for me, as well as working, in the profession of education and so forth, is how do we increase student engagement, right? Particularly in a time where we're teaching a 1900 education system to a 21st century student, right? And so how do we shift that mindset? Because I think, we're battling. It's like kind of like the battling of the mindset of century, and things are moving so much quicker now.
Yeah.
And so every day there's some kind of new adaptation, and as you mentioned, like it's just so hard to really keep up. But how do we continue to remain focused on engaging the student from morning to after school? Because like even at my child's school, who goes to school in Providence, public schools, from removal of recess to, shortened lunch periods and so forth, like we're, in some ways like receiving children at home with bottled up energy.
Yeah.
That, now you contend with it, or if not, they're doing homework, and whatever procrastination system, whatever that they're doing, it consumes all of your time up until bedtime, and then now it's a battle between like, this is how much time I have left, right? So how do we continue to be persistent in student engagement?
Honestly, I think there's sort of two separate questions, right? Because the technology doesn't have to be part of the engagement. When my kids, I have an 8-year-old, and I would say that the things that she comes home talking about most excitedly are honestly the most hands-on. She talks about her public school has a little garden. They get to go work in the garden. I think part of the problem is, especially at the elementary school level, the idea of what is developmentally appropriate for kids at different ages has fallen away a little bit. And so we're expecting kids to be able to sit still and not move way too young. And I have girls, and so they were better sitters. Not to be gender essentialist, but girls in general can sit better and pay attention better at younger ages. But even so, it's too, my older daughter is born in December, and so she entered kindergarten at 4. And it was too much for her. It was so much for her. And we got through it, but I think that there's been sort of a disconnection of what is developmentally appropriate for elementary schoolers, which is honestly a bit of a separate question from technology in terms of engagement. But man, I have so many thoughts about schools. I do think that helping kids figure out what their deepest interests are as soon as we can and what really lights them up, and then continuing to encourage that in whatever way possible is the key to engagement. And I think technology has a really important role to play there. But it's encouraging them to, again, play, be creative, be makers. I think so much of the problem that I have with social media, whatever you want to call it, all of these things, is that often it's just passive viewing of algorithmically chosen feeds. And again, I'm a garbage monster. I watch so much TikTok for a 42-year-old woman. It is embarrassing. So I'm not up here being like, it's easy, just no one look at it. But I do think when we are using these technologies and we're talking about all these things, it is focusing on making and creativity. It is not focused on being passive consumers of garbage. And again, I love garbage, so.
So I just want to make a couple points that in our report of Harnessing Parent Wisdom with the National Parents Union. So I also wanted to point out that Bernita Bradley and hi Bernita, and Emily Martin, who were the ones who held these focus groups and are co-authors on the report. There were some really interesting things that parents said about what they wanted to teach their kids, like what those parent-to-child digital literacy skills were, so we kind of have a list of those in the report. One thing we didn't put in the report was one of these third space ideas, where parents were talking about kids, these are all families from Detroit, kids going out on bikes.
Yeah.
That was one of these, more urban ways that kids could get out of their parent zone, achieve that independence, be together. And so I'd love to hear, maybe this is just a prompt for later on the parent panel, to think about what those third spaces can look like in more urban versus rural or other environments, because they're probably going to have to be hyper-localized. Yeah. And so another question is, how do we get more digital media literacy for parents? Because I think one thing that I heard from Caroline in with the Youth Voices work is that sometimes youth would say, my parents don't know what this is.
Right.
They didn't grow up with this. They don't use this technology. And so I'm just curious how we can help parents kind of understand this ecosystem a little bit better so they can do the mentorship that we hope they would. And maybe that's, could happen at community places like libraries, where there could also be encouragement of reading and
I think you need a young person. You need someone in their teens or 20s. It's only in the past 2 weeks that I've been thinking about streamers and how many kids watch streamers, how powerful gaming is. I am not in that world at all. I have no interest in that world. I do not want to spend my time on this mortal coil watching streamers to make sure that they are okay for my kids. So I think having some sort of youth emissary to be like, hey, olds, this is how it's working now. This is the new thing. This is how you might want to deal with it with your kid is really important, because I don't get it and I don't want to get it. I need a young person to explain it to me.
Yeah, I have a question as well. So my question is, how do you think that schools should go about separating offline and online presence, especially when they're so like closely intertwined as well?
Do you mean like the stuff that kids are posting like when they're at home, or?
Yeah.
It's such a good
making that
question,
barrier.
and it's really hard because especially, you know, a public school, the school a lot of my friends send their kids to has 6,000 students, Brooklyn Tech. I don't think that it is a good use of administrators' time to spend all day, every day, looking at the social media output of their 6,000 students, and it's not possible. Such a good question. I really don't have a good answer. I don't think it's good to make a sort of police state where kids have to be nervous about absolutely everything they're posting, and they have to worry like, oh, this is going to be taken the wrong way. And it's going to be a mark on my permanent record. Because I do think that sometimes we have to take into consideration that what teenagers and middle schoolers are posting on the internet, they don't think through the consequences because they're kids. And there has to be some space and grace for kids to make mistakes online that do not feel like they're going to ruin the rest of their lives. I worry a lot about that because it's not fair to teens to put that on them. At the same time, bullying, sexual harassment, racism, unacceptable. It is unacceptable. Kids should not have to put up with that in any format. So I have no easy answer for you, and I wish that I did have a better answer for you. I think being as straightforward from the outset about what the rules and expectations each school has for their students in and outside schools is the first step. So having really clear rules about what's okay and what's not okay, because obviously there's going to be interpretive differences, but I think starting out the gate with like actually just having rules, because when I talk to schools, often there's no policy at all. There's no policy for things like, can I use ChatGPT to do X, Y, and Z? They have nothing. They haven't thought it through. So I think the first step is for schools to at least have like a code of conduct, a bill of rights about online behavior. But beyond that, I really don't want to see a police state where schools are, you know, spending so much time policing what kids are saying outside the classroom, because I don't think that that's going to lead to good outcomes either. So hope that's even remotely satisfying. We have one more.
Okay, so anyone who knows me knows that I'm an avid supporter of third spaces. But when it comes to third spaces, I think people don't really think about accessibility. And when it comes to that, like, we have to think about transportation, communities, even age too.
Totally.
Because I feel like people only think of third spaces and they think of like younger kids. So how do we bring that like accessibility point to third spaces so that everyone has like a chance to just be off their phone and hang out, like you said?
Yeah. I think, again, having teens in the process of creating anything that happens is pivotal, because what, you know, adults in their 40s and 50s think is useful and interesting to teenagers is usually wrong. So I think the first step is like actually having youth partners who are like, this is what we want, these are the community's needs, this is, you know, problems getting someplace. I think that's like the first step. I think secondly, the third spaces don't necessarily have to be things that are adult driven. And they don't, I mean, I think of what my daughter does when she's out and about in my neighborhood with my friends. It's like they're going to Five Below and they're looking at like the cute dollar store things. Like I don't always think it has to be something that is so overtly organized. A lot of hanging out is just hanging out. So I think having a built environment that is safer is actually one of the major things, because Jenny mentioned bike riding. Bike riding in my city, I don't want my kids riding bikes. They're going to get hit by a car yesterday. So like having things like bike lanes, having nice parks, like things like that that don't necessarily seem like they are overt construction of third spaces is a major, major step that I think most American cities don't even have that step to begin with. So I think having, you know, making the environment safer for people of all ages will lead to these things happening.
All right, thank you so much to Jessica Gross. Her columns, as for Jenny, her columns have really meant a lot for me over the years. My teenage children are thrilled with the change I made based on our conversations leading up to this, which is that I stopped checking their online grading system. I wait until we get their quarter grades, and that small change, which I hadn't even occurred to me that was I could change that default, has made a world of difference in the number of arguments that we're having in our house, and has done nothing to lower the average grades that we are seeing. So thank you for that. We are going to take about 5 minutes to change the setup on the stage. We are going to be starting with our first panel, which is a large one, so we're going to move some things around. Please feel free, it's a short break, but feel free to talk to the folks at your table. If you need to step out, please do. There's still some breakfast, and the bathrooms are around the corner. But we're going to start again at 9:45. All right. So I am extremely excited about this panel. We are joined by moderator Dr. Isa Davis on stage and by 9 members of Young Voices Rhode Island who are going to... These folks are going to introduce themselves to kick us off, but we're so happy to have Dr. Davis join us. She's a professor of family and community medicine and the associate vice president of community health at the University of Maryland. And she's an accomplished researcher, mentor, and educator. And we are just thrilled to have you with us today. We at the Hassenfeld Child Health Innovation Institute have been working over the past 6 months with Young Voices, which has been one of the absolute pleasures of my year here. This is an incredibly accomplished group of teens who range from freshmen to seniors in high school. We started off our work 6 months ago, coming up with a working definition of social media, which is what they're going to be referring to today. And according to this group, they are defining social media as the sites or platforms where they can interact with the content that other folks have posted, so they can like and they can share and they can comment on things, and where they also have the opportunity to create their own content that other folks can interact with. And this is different from other things that they may do on their phones, like reading the newspaper or using the Google Maps or using their calculator or things like that are more static. And so just keep that in mind as they're talking, but we're thrilled to have you all with us today and excited to hear what you have to say.
All right. Well, welcome. This is really exciting. This is kind of one of the fun parts of my job. So you all are making my day today, and I'm so happy to be here to have this conversation with you all, an honest conversation, right? An authentic conversation we're going to have. We're going to let everybody out there know what we're doing and what you all feel and think about things. Is that right? All right. So before we start, how about we do brief introductions? Say your name, what grade you're in, and where you're from in terms of your state, and maybe your school. Can we say that? I think school too. All right. Who wants to start? You want to start? All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Maria Ejibwe. I go to Classical High School in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm a senior in high school, as well as the co-chair of the board of directors at Young Voices.
Hello, my name is Ariana Boozy. I am a senior at Central High School and a youth advocate at Young Voices.
Hi, my name is Simisolo Dauda, and I'm a junior at Classical High School, and this will be my 3rd year at Young Voices as a youth advocate.
Hello, my name is Miley Dewar. I'm a sophomore at Blackstone Academy in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and I am a youth advocate for Young Voices.
Hi, my name... Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Luvi. I'm a senior at Central High School, and it's going to be my 2nd year as a youth advocate for Young Voices.
Wonderful. All right, this end.
Hi, my name is Samsing Taming. I'm a freshman at Classical High School in Providence, and this is my 1st year as a youth advocate for Young Voices.
Hello, everyone. My name is Belicia Rodriguez Reyes. I am part of the board of directors for Young Voices, which is based in Providence, Rhode Island, as well as a senior at Classical High School.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexa Montepeque. I am a junior at Classical High School, and I am a board member and youth advocate for Young Voices.
Hi, everyone. My name is Astra Vargas Morales. I am a sophomore at Central High School, and I'm a youth advocate for Young Voices.
All right, is that everyone? Okay, I'm trying to make sure I can see. All right, wonderful. So I guess judging by the fact that you all are here, is it safe to assume that you all are using social media or have used social media? I don't want to make any assumptions, right? Okay, fine. So let's start with the first question. Why? Why do you use social media?
Well, I would like to start.
All right.
The reason as to why I use social media is basically for entertainment or for as a distraction from reality, I suppose, as well. But at times, social media can give me some information on scholarships that are going on near my city, or just a different way to connect with friends and family. Maybe I've not spoken to my best friend from 3rd grade, and somehow the algorithm finds her.
Finds her.
Yeah. It finds it just finds her.
Finds her.
Yeah. I don't know how. It just does it.
Okay. We're gonna talk about this finding people thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. But recently I found my best friend from 3rd grade, and it just found her, and we got to reconnect. It was a really wonderful experience.
Okay. And she is, I presume, not in the same hometown as you?
She's in the same hometown. It's just that she goes, I think she told me she goes to a different high school.
Oh, I see.
So, yes.
Okay. All right. So entertainment, and if anybody, go ahead.
Before I even answer this question, I would like to give a big shout out to Caroline and Elizabeth for giving us this opportunity to even be here.
Wonderful.
And to answer this question, I use social media mainly like most people to connect with people and to talk to friends without even have to give out my number. And I think for research purposes as well, because it gives us a lot of information on things that we might not even know is even going on in our own town.
Okay. So I have a lot of relatives that are in other continents, so I use that to talk to them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to. I also use it to look at the news going on around the world, and also even around me as well, because it's just all in one place on the internet. So
all available. I see. Easily able to be accessed. Okay.
I use it as an interactive space where I can socialize with my friends online. It also is a place where I can find inspiration for fashion, hairstyles, and honestly just learning something new.
Okay.
I use social media to connect with friends and family, right? Just to text them or whatever. I also use it for inspiration, for nails or whatever. It's for everything, honestly. You can find inspiration everywhere, but I mostly use it for that.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh,
I like to use social media to connect with my family and friends. I have a lot of family that I haven't really talked with in the past years because some issues, but then I would just text them on Instagram suddenly, and I'll be like, how are you doing? And we'll connect and just from being on social media. And I like to use inspiration from apps like Pinterest to get maybe a ceramic inspo for my class, or a new outfit, new hairstyle that's going on, or even just random news that comes up and I'm interested. I'm like, whoa, I never knew that. That's fun.
Okay. So I use this social media to connect with other people who have the same interests as me. For example, I really, really like art and people who create characters. So I usually follow people who who create art and do digital art how I like.
All right. So one more. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say I think two things that I mainly use social media for is to relieve my anxiety whenever sometimes I'm doing schoolwork and I get overwhelmed, so I just quickly like go on social media and just start scrolling for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then I go back to the schoolwork and I feel relieved. And then I think another thing has to be I have a separate account where I only get Italian content because I'm taking Italian right now. So I feel like it helps me just sort of reinforce that outside of the class. Yeah.
Okay. So, so if I can summarize some of the main themes, one of the big themes sounds like you use it for connecting with people, and that's important, whether it's family or friends or communicating. I'm also hearing that you use it for entertainment, right? Okay, and then I'm hearing it for inspiration for different kinds of styles, whether it's hairstyles or clothing or fingernails. And I'm also hearing for research purposes to get information, so we're going to explore that a little bit more. But research purposes, news, and then as just a distraction. Is that fair? Did I miss anything for the most part? Okay. So let's talk about then, so it sounds like there's a lot of good that social media is providing. You're smiling because you're looking at me like I'm going to ask something. Okay, well, it's so good. So let's talk about this information that you're able to access and research and news. Like, how do you, and you've all alluded to this, it's all kind of at your fingertips. All this stuff is at your fingertips. So how do you sort through what you're finding to know what is good information? Like, how do you know the information is good? Can we explore that a little bit? Yes.
So I'm in a research class that's like required for me to graduate. And my topic is like how racism and transphobia intersects. And for me, I was able to find most of my resources because of Twitter, because I follow a lot of people who are into that field and who have a lot of blogs and resources for it. So a simple search on Twitter, I'm able to find a direct link to most of my sources actually. And doing that, like being able to sort through it, honestly, just doing a simple like read through, seeing like if this is really credible or not. And it's been helping me a lot with my research, and I've already finished my final paper, so I think that's pretty good. So.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's probe this credible. How do you know what's credible?
Well, for me, my teacher, she's given us this like activity to use to know if it's credible or not. So I think because with that topic, it's very opinionated.
Yes.
But I also like to delve into sources that show me a nuanced side as well. That like show me like, oh, like it can work independently. At the same time, we still need to recognize how they work together as well. How they create like unique experiences for like transgender people of color. So I think that's what helps me realize if it's credible or not. Also, I try to like search up like more scholarly articles as well, because they also add more like sources within their paper. So that helps me know if it's credible or not.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would like to what they said on like how to make sure that your source is credible. And we had the same teacher. I also did a research project in order to graduate. And the acronym that our teacher uses is SPACECAT, which stands for speaker, purpose, audience, context, and like evidence. And that acronym really helps you find out whether a source is credible or what is the source talking about, and just basic stuff like when it comes to sources or citing sources, just make sure it doesn't say .com. It's more credible if it says .org or .net or .gov, .edu. That's really helpful when it comes to research and just making sure that your sources are credible.
Okay. Other thoughts? Yeah.
So you just look in an article and like you guess by the word choices they use, by the images they use, and see if it's credible that way as well.
because like an article could be like incredibly like formal, but if you're looking at the information and it's wrong, then that's not credible. But like if it looks like informal and it's kind of more like a, hey, this happened kind of thing, but like the information's correct, it can still be credible in that way. So I think it's not really just a once-over thing. It's like just looking at it specifically and basically like fact-checking everything as well.
That seems, oh, did you want to say something? So I like that. And I can find that very challenging, even myself, right? Because some of the images and some of the sources look really credible, right? I mean, look very formal, and it's really hard to tell. And especially, it's going to get harder to tell because we have artificial intelligence, right, that's out there that can make things look really, formal and credible. So, and do you think that you all are very, intelligent and critical thinking teenagers? Do you think a lot of teenagers do what you all do? Are able to be critical about the content that they see on social media? Do you think everyone is able to tell what's formal, not formal, credible, not credible, using the acronym? Do you think that's happening?
I think a lot of teenagers are not really aware of that, because I feel like they don't really do a deep dive into the information that's being like brought to them. They don't like go into the details and like research more about, oh, is this actually true? And I think the same thing goes for some parents, because
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, like, AI is growing bigger, and there's a lot of things that my mother shows me that she's like, oh my God, what is this? I just saw this. I'm like, Mommy, I'm sorry to break it to you. This is AI. I don't think this is real. And I just reverse search it. It's AI, or it's like something that is completely not true of it. And I feel like they should, like, there is schools that are teaching, my school does teach critical thinking and how to like use different markers when you're looking for something in a passage or looking for something in a site. And I feel like they have to like integrate that more in schools, because it's only like a few teachers that are doing that in school.
Were you going to say something down here? No? So one of the things I wanted to pick up on that I think two of you mentioned about information as you're looking on social media is this idea of algorithms, right? That they can help find people or connect you to people that, right? Or this idea, I think someone over here mentioned that you're scrolling and then something pops up in front of you, right? And you're like, oh, let me see what that is. And then you look at it. What do you think of that feature about social media? The fact that you're doing one thing and then something pops up, or news pops up, or this person who you haven't seen in, well, for me, like 30 years, right, pops up, right? Like, what do I do with that? Like, anyone want to answer that? Yeah, what do you think about popping up information in front of you?
I think it's both helpful and unhelpful.
Okay.
So it really depends on what it is. So like, if it's something I'm interested in and like, it's something that like relates back to like what I'm going through on social media, it's like, okay, like they got it, like they want me to look at more relative to my interest. But if it's not really like associated with what I'm looking at, I'm like, well, this is kind of a waste of my time. Like they're not following what I'm liking or like what I'm really like looking at on my feed. So it's kind of like they're not listening. So.
Oh, so you want them to pop up information that's related to things that you're interested in?
Yeah, because I feel like it's kind of unhelpful if it's not what you're interested in, but I think it's also helpful because like it lets you learn new things. I think it just depends on what it is specifically.
Okay.
Some things I do, like I ask my mom some things, and then, or like I'm talking about something with my friends, and then like the next time I open social media or like a day after, something of that same thing, like, oh, like I really want Chick-fil-A, and I'd be seeing like 10 Chick-fil-A ads or like anything of that nature. But I feel like it can somewhat be useful too, because sometimes you're like thinking of like an actual like question or like looking for something that you like actually need, and then end up popping up, and if it's like reliable, then it can like really inform you about what you're looking for.
So you use that operative word, reliable, right? Like that keeps popping up. Is it reliable? It pops up, and then you have to determine, is this reliable? Is it credible? Is it not, right? About down here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say how like I don't really get along with that feature with the algorithm, because sometimes my friends like send me just random things that are a bit silly, and then it starts showing up on my page, and I just have to keep clicking. Like, I don't want to see this post, but it keeps popping up. So it's kind of annoying sometimes when you don't want to see like a specific type of content. But I guess in a different case, like sometimes I do use it to my advantage, sort of to get a specific type of content. So that's why I have like multiple accounts to only get specific types of content on each one. And in that case, I guess it is very useful for me, but in other cases, not so much. And I don't really like it.
You don't like it? Okay, yes.
Going on to like Alexa's first point when she said that her friends will send her something and then it will start coming up on her feed. I was going to say that like algorithms are very uncontrolled, in my opinion, that you'll see something once, you like it, you start getting it for like the next 10 days. You click not interested, they'll like put stuff that is not from the creator, but it's still the same content. And it's like, I just clicked not interested. Why am I still getting this on my feed? Like, there's points in time where I have to block people, like block random accounts like on Instagram just so I don't get what they post. Even Twitter, like I put words that I don't want to see on my feed because it's just like so annoying. Like, I don't want to see this. Why is this still coming up on my feed? So I think like algorithms are just very uncontrolled, and it could even lead to kids getting in trouble. Like, they'll get a random like a random video on their phone. Parents walk by at that one moment, they're like, what is this? Like why is this on your phone? And you can't even explain it to them, like, I don't watch this, like I swear I don't watch this, like, and then it's just like, it's just an awkward moment. So yeah, algorithms are very uncontrolled in my opinion.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you're identifying some things that you do not like about social media. Are there other things that you do not like about social media?
What I don't like is how little children can get fixated on keeping up with the trends on social media to the point where they lose their sense of self along with their childhood, like scrolling their time away. And it's sad because they're at an age where they pick up and adapt to what they learn and what they like. It just comes to a point where it genuinely changes how they think and function and how they like interact with people in the real world. So that's what I don't like, is how like it can change their perception on certain things.
I really like that.
Go ahead. I completely agree with what you're saying, but I also hate that it also promotes new insecurities or old ones and just renames them, such as legging legs or glass skin and things like that, or how hip dips are just not it. I despise that. And like, once again, it influences the younger kids, younger than me. It influences our friends or our family, and I really don't like that. I also despise just seeing like some parents use social media to like exploit their kids in some shape or form, or just to punish them. They record things and just post them, or threaten to post it, saying things like, if you don't do this, that, and the third, I will put this on my social media, and leaving the kid with a long history of digital footprints. It's awful. I hate that.
Yes. We'll come back to that one. I want to
Yeah.
unpack that a little more. Go ahead.
Sort of similar to what Bree was saying, I know like on YouTube, there's like some content that people post and it's just like animal abuse, and YouTube literally, they've done nothing about it. And it's like, it's very disturbing. And also with like parents like exploiting their children's, using them for views, like literally basically abusing them for a camera and then calling it as a joke or a prank. It's disgusting and I hate seeing it. And a lot of like social media platforms they don't do anything about it. So, yeah.
Something I don't like about social media is the inappropriate content that like randomly appears on your feed, or how like, well, especially when it like involves younger generation and kids, right? Like mean comments and cyberbullying.
Mm-hmm. What about down here? Yes.
Yeah, adding on to the bullying point, it kind of gives like people that sense of like, oh, like this can't be tied back to me. So they kind of take that and they run with it. So they'll be able to say as much as they want and it can't be traced back to them. So they really can get like super deep with it and super hurtful. And then there's no way to like trace it back to them. So they're kind of free of that punishment that they need for that.
I wanted to connect back to what Bree said about bringing up new insecurities. It definitely can lower the self-esteem, and especially you'll find yourself maybe comparing yourself with others. Especially in social media, a lot of people use Photoshop and editing to make themselves maybe look thinner or like slim down their face, and so many people are trying to achieve the look they can't have. So it really just affects your self-esteem and mental health in general, and you could also find yourself in a place with like depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
What Simi Sola said earlier, like about the algorithm, on TikTok, I know there's like a feature where you can like search up, like there's like a little word, you can search it up, and then something will pop up kind of relating to the content. But a lot of times when you search up something on TikTok, it does not pop up, and then really inappropriate content pops up. I remember the other day I was trying to search up about pink fire because there's a car crash that came up on my For You page. I was like, oh, that's sad. And the thing was like, oh, pink fire, what is pink fire? And I was like, oh, I'm interested. And I click on it, and that was not about fire. It was really inappropriate. I'm not even gonna like explain it, but like if you're really trying to look for something in that like something related to that content, you're not really gonna get it on sites or on apps like TikTok. I guess it goes same for Twitter sometimes, because when you search up a word, it correlates into what the person posts and it highlights what word they use. So sometimes it'll be random things that with that word that pops up, and I'm like, I didn't expect that. I didn't know that was gonna pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't really like.
I think.
Back to what Astrid said about the inappropriate content, especially for kids. I seen like when my sister was like on my mom's phone, like going to like YouTube Shorts and whatnot. There's like some content that's hidden that's disguised as kids content, but it's actually a little bit inappropriate. Like they would just like disguise it in like a ways that where the parents wouldn't really notice. Mm-hmm. But like if you like really, really look at it, it would be like a little bit inappropriate.
I think something I don't like about social media is like going back to what Maria said, is how people feel like they have that like anonymous like identity so that they can just do whatever they want. And kids like are very like, they're more easily vulnerable on the internet, obviously. Like you'll go on Instagram, you'll get a reel of like a kid like dancing or whatever, and you see like these like disgusting hateful comments, and it's like no one says anything about it because they don't know who you are. And these kids are getting it. they don't know how to turn off comments. They don't know how to do any of this stuff. So it's like, what can I do now? And this stuff sticks to them. So it's like they grow up like feeling insecure about stuff that they want to do. They shut themselves. They don't want to like promote their hobbies online because they're like, oh, someone's going to comment something bad. And that's another thing with comments is that people use social media as a way to boost up their ego too much. I think like they'll post something, even me, like I'll post something, I catch myself going on social media every 5 minutes trying to see who likes my thing. Like, and I think that's something that I think a lot of people experience actually. Like they use it too much to please themselves.
Yeah. So, so I'm hearing some themes that are coming out about bullying, insecurities, seeing things that are inappropriate that then you can't unsee, and people comparing themselves to one another, right? All of these, and then there's someone mentioned anxiety and depression, and so why don't we explore a little bit about this link between social media and what you all are describing as mental health symptoms and things like, so let's talk a little bit more about that association between social media and mental health in the youth. Do you believe it? Sounds like you do. I'm hearing some things. So let's talk about that a little bit more. What about this association? Do you think this is by accident, by chance, or do you think this is on some level purposeful? Do you think like these social media platforms know or understand the effects of their platforms on you all? Do you think they know or you think they don't know? I mean, these algorithms, these gotcha, these hidden content, this stuff you can't control, and they are, as I understand, kid parameters where you have to put in your age and all these things before you go on different platforms. But it doesn't sound like it really mattered here for you all, because it seems like you still have access to everything that you shouldn't have access to if you put in your age and it was being so they don't seem to have any, and you all said this, they don't seem to be taking control and really trying to monitor and make sure. So what do you all think about this on mental health and youth? Yes.
Something I think is that I think it's purposeful actually, because I remember when I was little, before TikTok came out, there was a lot of long form content still around. So like I would spend hours on YouTube watching stuff, like for hours, and it would be like an hour long, 2 hours long. But then like when TikTok came, it was like this kind of shift happened with all the social media that they all started doing short form content instead, kind of like to keep you on the app longer, and like kind of like make sure you're not doing anything else with your time, and like kind of like keep you from being productive. Because like I know whenever I'm doing like homework and stuff like that, like I'll have the urge to go on TikTok and just like I'm like, okay, one video, and then I get on it and it's one video, and then I'll be like, well, I want another one, and then I keep going and going, and my homework sits there and I'm not doing it, and it's just like it's keeping you from being productive. And then like they have other stuff on it too, like they have the shopping stuff, they have they like added a 10-minute feature, like a 1-minute feature. They just like want to keep you on it longer so that you're not focusing on what you need to do at the present moment.
And what is the other reason for keeping you on it longer? What ideally would you be doing?
You'd be giving them money.
Right? That's exactly right? They are selling stuff to you and they want you to spend money and all, right? So that's exactly right. Yes.
Well, just like Maria said, I 100% believe that companies are doing this purposefully. I mean, we live in a capitalist society, and I believe that companies understand that the youth, even though we don't seem like it, we kind of move society. We will be the next generation in charge. So they want to make sure that we think what they think. That I believe they're trying to like condition us to like just make us into, well, just conform us into like kind of like the perfect specimen for them to use. You know what I mean?
Good consumers.
Yes, good consumers.
I like that. Okay. Yes.
I was gonna, like, with social media, I think what we need to get at first is parents. Like, I know we have some parents out here, and
they want to hear what you have to say. So Please, as a parent, I have teenagers too, so I'm all ears.
And I think what people, like, they always talk about social media teenagers, social media teenagers. What about social media and parents? Because, like, you can't expect your kid to not be on social media when you can't even sit at a dining table and not be on your phone. Like, especially little kids, they grow up seeing that. They're like, oh, Mom, like, you don't want to hear about my day? It's like, no, I'm on social media right now. It's like you can't expect your kid to not be on their phone when you're on their phone right in front of them. Like, and I think that just, like, it raises children to be dependent on their phone because, like, you don't give them that, like, that personal connection, even with friends, too. You catch a lot of students being in their rooms after school because, like, oh, I'm just going to be on my phone. Like, there's something to do. But there are stuff to do. You're just not giving it to them. Like, you're not giving it to these kids. Like, what happened to, like, libraries? Like, going to libraries for these programs. Like, I remember going to the library almost every day in the summer. I don't have that anymore. But I have young voices. But, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, these kids, they need things to do after school that aren't just adult-led, that are student-led. Like, I have debate after school, I have young voices, I have other things. So I don't catch myself on my phone all the time. So I think we need to bring back, like I said, third spaces, need to bring them back, and we need to make sure that they're not, like, they don't cut off at a certain age, that they should be for everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to say something?
Going back to what
Yes.
Semisola said, I feel like there should definitely be spaces where youth can socialize with people in real life, like programs after school, playing sports, and centers similar to those. Also thinking about how children manage their time on social media, like what I would recommend is not prioritizing it over schoolwork because it could essentially just lead to procrastination of doing work or just not doing it at all, which essentially doesn't end up well in the long run. And it jeopardizes their future.
I believe, like, a way to fix this, well, one of the ways to fix this is to have more social media literacy, not only, like, for teenagers or kids or anything like that, but for everyone. And I'm talking to you, parents. Since you're so worried about your kids being on that damn phone, maybe find out why they're on that damn phone and, like, try to connect with them. You know, maybe one day go up to them and say, hey, you want to go roller skating? You want to learn how to roller skate? But yeah, maybe just, like, create hobbies with them. Like, hey, you want to learn how to skydive or something crazy? It doesn't have to be that crazy. I'm just saying, like you want to learn how to do this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? Just try to connect with them more. Try to find some weird, strange activity that they can just boast about. Like, hey, I could do this.
So I want to pick up on that the connect with you all more, because that's come up a lot. And I will say parents, if I can speak on behalf of parents, sometimes find it a bit challenging to connect with their teenager. Not because they're not trying to, but somehow we all become not cool after a certain time. And so then we try to connect in different ways, and we try to even use the lingo, and it's like, don't do that. Or we say something from back in our day, and they're like, that's old school, right? Like, so help us, if we can, how do we connect with you all when you're on? I mean, how? Give us some suggestions of how. Now, we will agree, right, parents, to put our phone away, particularly during those important family moments, because I hear you. Nothing is more uncomfortable than sitting at the dinner table and everybody's got their face in the phone, right? Or you go out to eat and everybody's got their face in the phone, right? So I get it. So if we're gonna have these family moments, we'll agree to put our phone away. Then how do you all want to be connected to? How do we connect with you all? What should parents do?
I feel like if you know, like, one little thing about your child, your teenager, that they really like, maybe get them something that they really enjoy, like something small.
We got them the phone.
Yeah, not being on the
That was our mistake. We got them the phone and the iPad and all of the other, right? Okay, go ahead.
Get them something fun for them to do that they like, and you kind of connect with them with that. Like talk to them about, oh, I saw this at a cafe the other day, or I saw this in a bookstore, and I thought about you, so I bought it for you. And they'll feel like a little bit like happy, because my mom did that sometimes, and then I'll just sit down with her and talk for a little bit. Yeah, they'll just like talk with you a little bit, maybe even open up a little bit more. And if you keep on like having that, what's it called? Like not rotation, but routine. Yes, routine. Like they'll start to really not really be on their phone at home anymore. Maybe more talking to you, watching like what you do in the house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I say to go beyond the how was your day?
Right.
I'm
We all have
good.
tried that.
Okay, that's
And what do we
good
get?
kind of
Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
you gotta ask more questions
Oh,
than that.
okay.
Because like if you just say, oh, I'm good, that doesn't really tell anything. So it's like you gotta ask like, oh, how was it good? Or like how was it not so good? You know, like you gotta like learn more about your children and like, I don't know, just keep updated with them. Just like asking them questions about what they did in school or what they did after school. I think it makes like conversation, and it's like it goes on from there. So, okay.
I kind of wanted to kind of what Ash said, like kind of like observe your kids, like in a way, like okay, if they mention one of their interests, kind of like do some research into it. Maybe like get to connect with them, like in a way, like especially like kind of like buying stuff, for example, or like talking about like an episode probably that they watched of a show, like trying to like build connections of their interests as well. I think that's also like a big part.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me personally, my favorite part of the day is going home and sitting down at the dinner table and just talking to my family, because my dad, he always asks us like, how was your day? But then he follows it up with, what did you do today that was like so fun? And sometimes maybe we have gossip, maybe not. But also, and then I guess my mom doesn't really join in too much, but with my mom, I think one way that we really connect, she likes K-dramas, I like K-dramas. We sit down. We sit down and we watch K-dramas, you know? It doesn't even have to be something like too crazy like Bree was saying. You can just literally sit down, watch something you guys both enjoy, and then talk about it after, do a debrief, you know what I mean? And or just like, you know, get your family to sit together around the dinner table, talk about your day, talk about what you did, you know, talk about what was so fun, what wasn't so fun. So I think things like that, really connect me and my family, because I love them so much and I always feel so close to them. So.
I mean, I do kind of like similar things. Like I love watching K-dramas with my mom. And we're like, oh my God, no way he did that, no way he said that. But I also like, like when there's some tea in the school, you know, like, Mom, something happened today. And this, that, and the third, oh, these two people fought because of this guy. And she's like, oh, no me digas. Like, expressions really do help. And just like, yeah, expressions do help it. Because like, if you're on your phone, you're like, yeah, no, really, no, that's nice. Like, you have to like make eye contact with them. And some people don't like eye contact, but making eye contact is really good, and just being engaged and just asking more questions. And I know it's really hard to like connect with your kids sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I understand. Like, do you play video games with your kids? See? It's hard.
I know. I try.
Yeah, you try.
My hands don't do all that. I'll sit and watch them play.
Yeah, you
and
sit
be like,
and
oh my
watch.
God, that looks great. Go, 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 go. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, but even though you can't physically do the same things that they're doing, maybe just being beside them and just like try to, well, don't. Oh my God. Recently, my mom has been constantly saying demure, like I can't take it anymore. Like, just like learning the lingo, I guess, is okay, but just like
Don't do it.
Just don't do it, please.
Like Riz and.
Oh my God!
I'm trying.
Oh.
Look,
I try. Yes. Don't do it. Okay. All right.
But yeah.
I tried. See, I knew it. Y'all, I knew the word, though. See? Riz, parents. Riz. It's Riz.
That means game.
Go ahead. All right. I love it. Yes.
I was also gonna say like what Bree what Bree was talking about, like show interest, like even if it's fake, like even if it's fake, like at least try, because like when I'm like talking to adults like at school, like my teachers, like I have this like favorite teacher that I talk to him like twice a day, like all the time. I don't even have him this year, but I go to his classroom all the time. I talk to him about anything. Like you should be able to have that with your parents. Like just like, oh, like this happened, this, that. But it's like when your parents, because me personally, my dad, he works at home. So like whenever I go downstairs, I try to talk to him, he's like, Mom, I'm in a meeting right now. I'm just like, oh, okay. And then when like later in the day, I try to talk to him, he was like, oh, I'm tired right now. I was like, oh, okay. And then in the morning, I'm just like, oh, like, how's your night? He was like, fine. And I was just like, and it's just like, okay. But like with my mom, it's a little better because like she works at a hospital. So like, I'm like, oh, how's your day? She was like, yeah, I had a patient. I was like, blah, blah, blah. Not, she didn't break any rules, but like just saying, but like just being able to have like easy conversations. And I think like starting it from a young age too, like don't just like, and like you were saying, like teenagers, we can be hard, but.
You think?
Teenagers can be hard, but I say keep pushing. Even though they seem like they're getting annoyed, keep pushing, because like me and my parents, like when I just became a teenager, it was a little rough. But like once we started driving and like actually having to like be next to each other and be there, like it kind of like it brought the relationship back up. Yeah. So just like do things. Like, and I promise you, once they start driving, it gets better. It gets better.
We're in that stage right now. So
I feel like if you want your child to like open up to you and just talk to you like in a way that Theo said with his teachers and stuff, I feel like the parents should be willing to understand and listen and like doesn't show judgment towards their child when they're opening up. And like I feel like if you actually show interest, you show like you understand their perspective and point of view, I feel like they will be more willing to open up in the future, you know? So yeah, I feel like if you want a relationship like that, you also have to play a part in it as well.
That's very true. I love that. So what I'm actually hearing coming out of this, and it actually reminds me of 3 principles about teenagers and for parents when it comes to things that look like they're distracting you all, right? So social media or your cell phones, right? And that the thing that teenagers really want, and the thing that these social media and cell phones provide, is they want to be seen as autonomous, right? So you want some level of autonomy. I think that's some of the push-pull that we feel as parents, because we realize you all are becoming young adults, and there is a little bit of separation that then starts to happen because you start to show that I have my own interests and my own, and we're like, but you're still our little babies, right? So we get it, right? So there's an autonomy that we, on some level, have to respect that and help you to grow more into that responsibly, right? And then you want to be seen as competent, right? Which I get, right? You want to be seen as, we are competent. We know we can, right? Like, trust me, I can make good decisions, right? And then you also you have that need for connection, which came out in all of what you said, right? Connection with your friends, your family, and connections with parents, that you want that, right? And so we as parents have to figure out how to meet all of those 3 things, and you have given us great suggestions in showing interest, right, and being connected, sitting down, not being distracted, and then also listening to you, showing interest. And when I hear showing interest in what you're saying, it means allowing you all to be able to demonstrate your competency about different things. Is that correct? And then having a little autonomy that, you can kind of make some decisions. Parents, what do y'all think about that? Do you think we can try to do that a little bit? Okay. I hear you. That's great. Thank you. I want to spend a little bit of time, and then we'll have to have time to open it up for questions. On one of the, I want to take us back to the school system, because we know that this year many schools implemented policies around cell phones, right? Banning cell phones during the school day or what have you. And so as a way to get on top of, on top of you all not being distracted and stuff during school and helping to decrease some of the effects on the mental health. What do you all think about these school policies, and are they occurring at your school, and what do you think? Do you think they're effective? Yes.
When I was in middle school, we had those Yonder pouches. So those are kind of the things where you put your phone in and then you lock it. And kids, they found a way around it. Like, I feel like once you restrict something, it makes it so it's like you want it more. So like they would like find ways to like bust it open, and they would like pretend it was still closed, and they would like pull out their phone when she wasn't looking, like my teacher, things like that. And then like you kind of need like a magnet to open it. So like when she left the room, everybody like, okay, let's go get it. And they would like open it at the same time. So I think it's just like learning how to manage the phones in classrooms, not really like restricting them, but not like opening it up so it's like only phones in the classroom. So then that like also goes into like making sure like the curriculum is like engaging and stuff like that. Because like there's the fact that like if it's actually doing what it's supposed to do, you're not even gonna think about your phone. Like you're just gonna wanna learn instead. So you're not gonna wanna think about like going on your phone when you have something else right there that's like learning. So.
Okay. Take one more.
Yeah, so in some of my classes actually this year, I feel like they've gotten a lot stricter with like the phone policy. I've noticed that for some reason they've just really cracked down on it this year. But honestly, whether they had phones banned or not, I know it won't help my attention in class, because whenever I don't use my phone in school, even in classes that do allow it, I just don't ever have the feeling to look at my phone, just because I always want to pay attention to what we're doing in class, but sometimes I just space out and start daydreaming. So I get distracted, and then next thing I know, they're like, are you guys ready? Go ahead and start. And I'm like, oh, awkward. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing right now. But another thing with the school, system is that, I don't know if I should bring this up right now. I'm going to do it either way, okay? But like we talked a lot about how like, no, never mind. Maybe I shouldn't bring it over.
Say it.
So we talked a lot about, like how to help youth, do stuff after school, having those other spaces. And we talked about how doing like sports is one big thing that a lot of students do after school that sort of keeps them off of their phone. And it's crazy because right now they're defunding like all of the sports programs in our district. And transportation was another thing that we talked about, because a lot of students don't have transportation to perhaps go hang out with their friends or go to like programs like YV, because from school I go to YV and I use the bus to go there. But they're literally changing it so that in order to qualify for a bus pass, you need to live 2 miles away instead of 1 mile away. So now a lot of students aren't going to get a bus pass. And it's crazy because a lot of students have obviously been protesting this, and teachers as well, because I'm pretty sure they were laying off teachers as well. Yeah. And we even had like a walkout, and like some of the things that some people are saying are just kind of ridiculous. Like you're putting our education, like you're making our school lives even worse, okay? And then you have the nerve to say that we just wanted to do a walkout because we wanted to skip class or something. Like, no, this is serious. This is important to us. You're defunding, like, I know so many students who do sports. They're like, that's like their whole life. That's their passion. I know one of my friends, she says like sports is the biggest thing for her, because she's sort of counting on that for her college career too. You know what I mean? So the fact that they're just like, there's people saying things like that, just it's kind of hurtful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Go ahead.
I also want to talk about what Alexa said and a little bit about what I was going to say. One of my friends actually got detention for the walkout, even though it is in our right to protest what we fight for. She got detention for 2 days. And what was I going to say? I was going to talk about how... I actually forgot. Oh my God.
I kind of wanted to, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to
go
interrupt you, but going back to what, like, teachers and stuff and, like, the phone policy.
Yes.
Like, my teacher in one of my classes, like, we have phone slots where we put our phones, like, as soon as we come in. But still, I know that's a way for us to learn and stuff, but, like, even with that, she doesn't teach us, like, anything. Like, it's, like, very independent in that class, and I understand, like, I know, like, maybe some college courses are going to be like that, but this is high school, and, like, you're a freshman teacher. Aren't you supposed to be teaching the class? It's, like, most of the time I have to go into my Chromebook and, like, see what's on the thingy, but at least tell us what we're doing, you know? Like, I didn't even know I had to do, like, 3 or 4 notes until I went into my Chromebook and stuff. But yeah, I feel like, and then she would be shocked when most of the class was not doing well on the test. So I feel like maybe teachers should make it engaging for the students to learn and just telling us what we're doing, because maybe that was just one of my experiences, but yeah.
It's okay. It's important, though.
Yeah.
Oh, one more. Yep, go ahead.
I mean, I feel you on that, and I agree. But
in there.
I just real quick, I just wanted to say, like, especially with a shortage on, like, social workers and things like that, I feel like, and just, like, psychologists in general, like, the schools need to provide more spaces such as that for the youth who are struggling with mental health and connected to social media. Like one of my experiences is having a nervous breakdown, and the social worker is not available on Tuesdays, so I can only break down on Wednesdays. like with the shortage and all these things, all these resources that are supposed to be for the youth, they're defunding it even more, and they're taking it away from us. It's just unjust. It's so unfair.
I was going to add back to what Maria said about the phone policy and the Yonder pouches. I feel like that didn't really stop, like, my class and back in middle school, because the only place where they had the magnets to, like, unlock the Yonder pouches were, like, near the main office, and, like, nobody else could leave the classroom. So, like, once the teacher left, they just broke it, the Yonder pouch, just to take their phone out. Or they, like, either used a chair to, like, break the pick that was holding the lock, which was pretty creative, not gonna lie. But you would get charged like $100 if you broke it. But not really, nothing really happened. And then when I finished middle school, I feel like, honestly, my principal was like, oh, you're gonna bring it to high school. Nothing happened. I don't really have to use it. And now that I'm in high school, honestly, I don't use my phone that much, since some of my teachers have rules, and, like, we're allowed to use it when he's not teaching and stuff like that. So I feel like if you, like, tell them not to use their phone and not make your class, like, interactive, they will start using their phone. They really don't care.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So honestly, to all the adults in the room, I cannot recommend highly enough spending lots of time with teenagers who are not your own teenagers. It is really, like, one of the most amazing experiences. I have loved working with you all over the past 6 months. We could have an entire week-long conference. We are going to move to the next session, so we're not going to do questions now, but these folks are here all day. And they are especially going to be present during the afternoon session when we're having the facilitated conversation about where do we go from here, because they have done a lot of thinking about what they want folks to know who are designing changes to this system. You have heard why they use it, you have heard what they don't like, you have heard their recommendations to improve youth mental health and wellness in general, and they have many thoughts, which we're going to hear over the course of the day, and things that the rest of us should really be keeping in mind when we're thinking about how this could all look different. And so what we're going to do right now, we're going to take another couple of minutes, we're going to reset the stage. You all can go down, but you're going to, please feel free to come to these folks. This was amazing.